Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Homesteading Off the Grid and a morning ramble. To my loyal subscribers who know what you get when you come here, I'm going to ask you to wait about 60 seconds very patiently before the ramble starts, because I'm going to take 60 seconds to address the folks who come here by way of Google searches for this information so they can get their entertainment or their information in 45 seconds or less, because I've just spent 15 with this introduction, and then so they can move on without hating the rest of their lives and being angry about maybe 17 or 18 minutes of their life they'll never get back. Okay, Old Farmer's Almanac Winter Prediction 2018 versus Farmer's Almanac, also known as the New Farmer's Almanac Winter Prediction 2018-2019. As we talked about in a video 2 weeks ago, the Old Farmer's Almanac is calling for a relatively mild winter in the United States and Canada this winter. Okay, this almanac dates back to 1792. It's right half the time, it's wrong the other half the time. They base their findings upon a secret squirrel studies that they've never revealed. Okay. This is contrary, I've been hearing in the comments to that video, in which I researched thoroughly this morning, starting around 4:30 in the morning, because I'm the guy. You just heard Roger the rooster crowing. Oh, wait, I'm diverting. Let's take care of these people who come here from Google searches first. The New Farmer's Almanac, which began publication in 1818 and has always touted itself as being the competition of the Old Farmer's Almanac, is calling ironically for the opposite for its 2018-2019 winter's prediction. According to this almanac, it's going to be a very nasty, terrible, cold, wintry winter, with lots of snow, lots of precipitation. You better have your 20-foot deep bunker dug up with all your 2,000 years worth of canned goods in it. It's going to be bad. So for those of you who have come here by way of Google, Old Farmer's Almanac says mild winter, New Farmer's Almanac says terrible winter. Now, you guys take off, and I'm going to address our loyal subscribers. That was 2 minutes and 20 seconds. All right, thank you. For those of you who are still here, good morning. We're out here in the pre-dawn hours this morning for the morning ramble, and it's for a reason. It's not because the insomnia monster attacked Crazy Lake again last night. I tied that sucker up and put him in a bag and hid him under the bed, because I'm so full of life and happy about life that I don't want to sleep anyway. I get the 4 or 5 hours I guess my body needs. Now, let's get on with it, okay? I kind of just mentioned there why I'm here this morning, why I'm up here early. You'll remember the video from about 10 days ago as of this recording. It's still early September. Right now it's September 5. It's about 6 o'clock in the morning here. Made this video because the Old Farmer's Almanac was predicting a mild winter. So people have been coming on blasting me about how the New Farmer's Almanac is saying the opposite, and where do I get my information, and why did it take, I don't know, however many minutes to tell a story that could have been told in less than 2 minutes. Well, I tell the stories the way I tell them, because it's my channel and this is how I like to tell stories. Fortunately, a lot of folks watching, the folks of you who are still here, don't mind watching, so thank you again. Now, I don't want to spread non-facts. I mean, that's not why I'm here. But I know it's really hard to guarantee that anything we do say is factual, because there's so many sources of information out there, as we all know. I think, this amazes me. I have in my hand right now a gadget upon which I'm recording this video. With this gadget and with an internet connection, I have access to all known information in the world. And that amount of information doubles every 5 years. Did you know that? The amount of known information in the world doubles every 5 years. It's amazing. And I have access to it all in my hand. And the majority of the people around the world use this gadget not to obtain wisdom or gather information, but to argue with strangers, insult people they've never met and will never meet, take pictures of themselves, put it online on social media sites, and then check back every 3 minutes to see how many more thumbs up they have. It's one of the reasons they can't stand an 18-minute story. They got to see how many people just gave the thumbs up to the latest selfie, let them know if they need to go take a better one. It's insane. But anyway, you know, we are in the age of information. And man, is that information twisted and distorted. Now, with these two almanacs I just talked about, obviously this distortion and this twisting goes back to the early 1800s. And I bet it goes back way farther than that. It probably goes back to the time to when 2 or more people gathered around a campfire to tell a story. So the New Farmer's Almanac comes out in 1818, and it touts itself as the competition to the Old Farmer's Almanac. Well, is it any surprise then that it's going to say the exact opposite of what the Old Farmer's Almanac says? No. Now, the Old Farmer's Almanac, which is right half the time, and it's not right the other half of the time, so it's got a 50-50 chance of being right. It says they use a top secret formula for determining weather patterns and predicting the weather. Well, the New Farmer's Almanac, and I was reading about all this morning, and is this going to surprise you? Probably not. They state that they gather their information and make their predictions through scientific methods, unlike that Old Farmer's Almanac. Well, of course, it's a competition, so they've got to do everything completely opposite, right? Okay, now, here's the Zim Dinger. Here's the part that the folks who already tuned out because, you know, they gave me their 2 minutes worth of their attention span. This is what they're going to miss. This is what they're not going to get. They walked away from the first 2 minutes of the video saying, see, I knew it. I knew I was right. I commented on this guy's video that the New Farmer's Almanac said that it's going to be a terrible winter. And so he finally went and did the research and saw that it's going to be a terrible research. I know I was right. Folks, there's no use trying to waste your time trying to convince somebody of the facts when their minds are already made up, okay? What's the old saying? Don't confuse me with the facts. My minds are already made up, or my mind is already made up. Think about it. If the Old Farmer's Almanac says this, and you've only got a 50-50 chance of being right, but then the New Farmer's Almanac says the opposite, what is your chances of being right? It's still 50-50. Because the New Farmer's Almanac, if it's saying the opposite of what the Old Farmer's Almanac says, you got a 50-50 chance of being right. So if you place your emphasis or your belief on one, and your buddy places her emphasis or his emphasis on the other, you guys are gonna basically go back and forth year after year after year after year. 1 year you're right, the next year she's right. 1 year, you might get a couple years in a row where you're right or he or she is right for the next couple of years, but it's like flipping a penny. You know, you flip a penny 100 times, maybe 48 it'll land on heads, 52 it'll land on tails, but it's about 50-50. Now, I'm going to kind of contradict what I just said there with this next statement. They say there's 2 sides to every coin. Actually, I say there's 3, because most people forget about that rim going around the outside of the coin. And folks, in the day and age in which we live, which probably is not too unlike the day and age in which our ancestors and our forefathers lived, there's 3 sides to every story. There's his side, her side, and the truth, which is usually somewhere in the middle, or maybe nowhere close at all, but that's that ring around that coin. Now, what does all this have to do with real winter predictions? Old Farmer's Almanac versus New Farmer's Almanac? And why is Crazy Lake up here talking in the dark? Well, because Crazy Lake is going hiking today, and he's dragging his beautiful bride Dearly out with him. It's, like I said, early September as of this recording. Don't know when you're watching it. You might be watching it in the spring of 2031. YouTube allows us to kind of travel through time. Not really, but we can. Isn't it neat? You know what I'm saying. I don't know if I'll be able to get this on the phone or not, but I want to show you guys this daybreak here, the skyline. Isn't that absolutely gorgeous? If only 13 people watch this video, it was worth coming up here to make it just to see this view. I'll tell you, the views on my homestead are so glorious all 24 hours of the day. Doesn't matter what time I'm up here. It's beautiful and it's worth a trip coming up here. All right, so here's the deal. Me personally, and you know, I grew up in the mountains of West by God, Virginia, and there's a lot of mountain men, a lot of mountain women out there listening. When I say this, these folks are finally going to, and it doesn't matter if you're in the mountains down in the Ozarks or up in the Cascades over in the Pacific Northwest, or, you know, upstate New York, New England, out in the Rockies out west. If you grew up in the mountains, this is how you know how to predict the upcoming winter. It's called mast, M-A-S-T. Now, what is mast? And the mountain people are rejoicing. They're saying, we're glad you finally got to it, Crazy Lake. We know you've been around the world and you've lived in cities with 20 million plus people in them for, a long time. And we know you've lived in Southeast Asia and been across Europe and the Middle East, but it's finally time you've gotten back to your hillbilly roots. You don't need the pseudosciences. You don't need the hard sciences. You know what you need? You need an oak tree that is old enough to produce acorns, and you need to go stand underneath it in the fall and take a look up and try not to get hit in the head, or take a look down and see how many acorns you're standing on. The scientists, the fake news creators, the crystal ball readers, none of them know as much about nature as Mother Nature herself. And Mother Nature takes care of her children. The mountain people know that if we're going to have a terrible winter, if it's going to be harsh, if it's going to be cold, if it's going to be long, then the previous fall, the previous autumn, Mother Nature is going to make sure to provide for her babies. Those oak trees are going to have so many acorns on them, they're going to be hanging down, almost breaking the limbs. The same with the apple trees, any fruit-bearing trees, the hickory trees. And this is kind of why I'm taking this hike today. This has got me thinking. We collect hickory nuts over here below this hickory tree, and we grow hickory trees in pots. Last year, we just messed around with the hickory trees. We did about a dozen or 15, and already these suckers are 18 inches tall. They're doing really well. But last year, we gathered up about 2,000 acorns to grow oak trees, and they're doing really, really, really super well. I mean, we just have so many little baby oak trees now, between a foot and almost 2 feet tall, some of them, from last year's acorns. But I've been noticing there's more hickory nuts over here. Now, I don't know if that's because I'm seeing what I look for. We did a video on that here not too long ago. Be careful what you look for, because you will see it. So I don't know if it's because I'm consciously thinking about the upcoming winter and the amount of mast and all these things, or if this tree is producing more nuts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go hiking today. There's a place we go hiking that's not far from here where we went last year, and I had never seen more acorns in my life than we saw last year in those trails. We could kneel down at any point on this trail and take one of those plastic grocery bags you get when you go to the grocery store, and fill an entire bag without moving from one spot. And I kept telling Dearly the whole time we were out there, honey, I have never seen this many acorns in one spot in my life. And I grew up in the mountains, grew up in the woods. No, I know I left them for a long time, being overseas, being in cities, being in deserts, being in tropical forests, jungles. But I remember, we remember. So, and last winter, how did we fare? Okay, now I'm in Central Virginia. It's very warm down here. It's much warmer, especially in the winter, than where I grew up in the mountains of elevation, or the mountains of West Virginia. I grew up at an elevation of about 3,000 feet. I'm at about 800 feet here. So we have never gotten a lot of snow. However, last winter, we got brutally cold temperatures, and they persisted. It was the longest winter I can ever remember in Albemarle County, Virginia. I lived here for 8 years, many years ago, came back. This is going to be my 3rd winter here now that I'm back. So I've spent that was my 10th winter, I guess, in Virginia, and it was the longest, coldest winter in this part of Virginia I ever remember. We didn't get a lot of snow, but when the snow came, it stayed because it was too cold to melt the snow. The temperatures never got above freezing. We ran out of firewood a couple times, and I was out here, cutting up this giant red oak tree down here that fell about 20 years ago, burning wood that wasn't entirely dry, because we just didn't have time for it to dry. And we had a terrible nor'easter that knocked down a lot of my neighbor's trees, 5 or 6 big red oaks. The power went out for 5 days. Fortunately, we have baseboard, which can be expensive, so we also have a wood stove in the house. Our house was built in 1903. It's got an old wood stove from the early 1970s. We shut off all the doors to the bedrooms, camped out in the living room, had a blast doing it, kept that wood stove chalked up with wood, and we survived. We keep plenty of water and food stocked up to where if something like that happens, we can get through it. Now, we're not preparing for the apocalypse and all that stuff because we don't live our lives in fear. So what my point of that is, the math didn't lie. There were a lot of acorns, a lot of nuts, and it was a pretty bad winter by Central Virginia standards. So, man, this is beautiful. I think I can turn this off now. Yeah, look at that. You remember Davy Crockett used to grin down bears? Well, Kevin Lake talks up the sun. But I got another trick too. If I come out here in the evenings or any time in the afternoon, I can talk it down also. And here comes Cleopatra. Hello, girl. Maybe she's concerned because she doesn't know why I'm up here so early. She knows I usually wait until the sun comes up. Come on, girl. So, oh, she might want food. So hey, girl, I'm gonna go feed her, and I need to wake up my wife and kid. It's about 6:20 a.m. now, so it's time to get Daniel up, get him off to school. He's recovered from his chicken pox. Come on, girl. Thanks for all the well wishes. A lot of folks knew he had chicken pox, and they were concerned, but he's okay now. So I'm gonna go get him off to school, and Dearly and I are gonna go hiking. So sorry, girl, you can't go with me, okay? You gotta stay here and hold down the homestead while me and Dearly are hiking, all right? So we hope you guys enjoyed this video, another video from Homesteading Off the Grid. If you came here by way of a Google search and you kind of liked what you were hearing, so you stuck around, go ahead and subscribe, because we got plenty more. I gotta go let Roger out so he can wake up the rest of the world. We'll see you guys next time.